Hey, and welcome to Mighty Fine Shindig, a Firefly podcast. From Common Room Radio, I'm Liz Stevens.
I'm Sarah Kate Pizant.
I'm Vinton Bain.
I'm Alastair Stevens.
And is this the hardest part, would you say? Or does that come later?
Oh, boy.
Very good.
Well, hey, Alastair, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I've been a big fan, long-time listener, first-time caller. But I'm eager to talk about my favorite episode of Firefly. There, I said it. That's it. It's out in the open now.
I think
so
Shindig
is magnificent.
my episode too. It's the best one, I think.
I mean, we named our podcast after it.
We
That's
did.
true.
To be fair, that was my idea because it was my favorite episode.
For a
But
while,
yes.
we were going to be Big Damn Heroes, a Firefly podcast, but I think that Mighty Fine Shindig is absolutely the way that we should have gone and did go and are going
Yes.
into the future.
Yep.
Excellent.
It gives you the best hashtag, if nothing else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Which was really just a lucky coincidence.
Yes. Mhm. I frankly enjoy swear words. So this week, we're covering Shindig, which was written by Jane Espenson, who I know is a Storywonk favorite over there with Alastair and Lonnie.
Yeah, we have some history with Jane. She is absolutely lovely. And what's amazing, I think, is that she made her name writing for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She's so tied with the voice of that show. And yet, to me, this is one of her best scripts. This is so effervescent. It has all of that energy, all of the comedy that she's so renowned for, but also these really deep and abiding emotional moments. The thing that I love most about this episode is its heart, which is appropriate since I think we're going to talk a little about the five-man band later.
Yes, absolutely.
Good deal. Yes.
Also directed by Vern Gullum.
Gillum. I think it's spelled Gillum, but I don't know how it's pronounced.
Did he direct any other episodes? I meant to look this up, and
That's
I
a
didn't.
great question that I don't have the answer to.
Well, never mind. I'll just forget it.
Scratch
we
that.
don't need to know. It's not Tim Minear and it's not Joss Whedon. Moving on.
He did direct Trash.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I like Trash. I quite like Trash, actually.
Trash is a solid episode, yeah.
Okay, no, I do remember that one.
Yes.
Yes. That's when we get Yosaf Bridge.
Yes, which is my
yes.
very favorite joke in the entire series.
Okay. All right. I remember that one. That is a good one.
So for those of you who maybe don't know who Alastair Stevens is, he is a friend of the show. He and his wife, Lonnie Diane Rich, are a part of they are the Storywonk network of podcasts. They do,
Is an infeasible number the phrase that you're looking for? Just
maybe,
an infeasible number of podcasts?
way too many podcasts, but I love all of them. So it's difficult to, put like a number to that thing.
That's true. You don't want to start at one and leave one at the bottom.
Right.
True.
What? Anyway, they do shows like Dusted, which is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. They do We Can Do This All Day, where they're going through the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know why we're doing this right now. There's no one that listens to us that doesn't listen to Storywonk.
I mostly feel that way. I mostly feel like this is cute. This is like
this is
when the
darling.
kids are like, "This is my dad." I'm like, no, we met.
I never get to get the introduction. This is good.
Anyway, if for some bizarro reason you're listening to us without knowing about them, please go listen to all of their shows. They're wonderful, fantastic. We literally would not be podcasting without them. And we love them very, very much.
Yes. Check out our beloved Storywonk.
Yes, the most beloved Storywonk. Also, they run our commercial on their podcast, which is the cutest
Which
and
is
sweetest thing.
the greatest commercial. I just want to keep running it every week. I know that all of our listeners have now come over here, but I just want to keep running it because it's adorable.
Oh, thanks. That one was an editing nightmare because we didn't know what to do.
Nope.
Sure
We definitely
was.
freestyled it right at the moment.
Yep.
Decided to do it and did it.
That's kind of our jam.
That's
That's
the
kind
way.
of how we
It is.
roll
Yeah.
around here.
We're unprepared, but we have a lot of heart.
It's that
I'm okay with
improvisational
that.
energy.
Maybe.
It's like
Exactly,
podcast jazz.
yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah, we're like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, and I don't know which one you are, Vinton. Seth one. Seth Meyers.
I like it.
So let's talk about this episode.
All right, yeah, let's get down.
Time for some thrilling heroics.
Okay, so we start out, we are in another bar, which is excellent. We
love
begin
it.
in the bar.
We begin in the bar.
And it's...
That's a Storywonk joke. You should be listening to them.
Yes, please listen to them. We begin in the graveyard, we begin in the bar. But we see that Mal and Jane are playing holographic billiards with a bunch
sure
of thugs.
are.
And it's the coolest... this is one of my very favorite effects.
It's really fun.
when we did Train Job a couple weeks ago and he went flying through the window that ended up being a hologram,
Yeah.
I thought about this particular scene with like the holographic pool balls, and I couldn't remember if it was actually in the show or if it was in the movie, but I'm glad that it was. I only had to wait 2 more weeks in order to see it because it is one of my favorite effects. I love when the balls fizz out and the guys are like, ah, and the bartender just like gestures at the sign behind him, management, not in charge of misplaced balls or whatever it is that
It's
it said.
really classic. Yep.
Yes. This teaser was originally supposed to be Mal and Inara walking through some kind of holographic changing room. Like it was originally going to be a forest they were walking through. And then they eventually, it would morph into the bar, like as if the bar had this changing room that you could walk through, I guess.
Very cool.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that, actually. That's an interesting piece of world building.
Yeah.
So then we find out that one of the guys that they're playing pool with is a slave trader, and Mal steals all his money, goes over to Inara and says there's a thief about. Inara scolds him, but then shoves the money into her bra anyway.
She does. Sure. I really like this little bit from Inara, actually, whereas there's the first scolding, and then she goes ahead and she takes the money, and she's very complicit in this action all of a sudden. And it surprises me, because first of all, I wonder why she even came along. This does not, I mean, they're on Persephone even then, or
no,
not
they're
yet?
not on Persephone yet.
Okay, so I just wonder, like, of all the places that she could have gone that day, why did you go to the bar with Mal?
Well, last week we
Jane?
just had to deal with, like, we were in space the entire time. We didn't hit planet side at any point last week for Bushwhacked. And so, I mean, I definitely, after that entire mess, would have also needed a small pink drink like Inara had in her hands.
She came for a drink.
That's right. That's exactly why she's in that bar.
I like very much that this beat with Inara foreshadows her comment to Mal later in the episode when she says that he can't even play by the rules of other criminals.
Yeah.
There is no version
so
of society
true.
with which he is compatible. But here she is equally complicit. And the way in which Inara is cast on the fringes of her own society throughout the episode, I find absolutely fascinating. We keep making remarks about this being her world, about this being a place with which she is familiar, a place within which she is comfortable, and yet that's clearly not the case, as is so often the case in Firefly. There's just a lot more to Inara than meets the eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I think with both of them, we see that parallel that they have their own sphere that they belong to but don't belong in necessarily. So because they're both such idealists, and they would rather, I mean, if they picked the world that they were in, it wouldn't look anything like where they're abiding right now. But they're doing the best they can with what they've got, I suppose. He's picked the side that fits best with whatever moral compass it is that's directing Malcolm Reynolds, which is obviously a strong one.
Yes.
Only his own. And hers also, which is more rule-abiding, but is still, I mean, she picks something, this life of a companion, that is really outside most of the culture. Like, she has set herself apart in this lifestyle that she chose. And I think that's really interesting, too.
Well, and chooses to exist alongside the crew of Serenities. She chooses to exist even within their community. She is apart. I mean, spatially, thematically, idealistically, she's set apart from the crew. And she's just so magnetic on screen, you know. This entire, not just the performance, of course, though, yes, certainly the performance, but her entire essence, the spirit of Inara, I just find completely fascinating.
Yeah.
So a fight breaks out. Surprise, surprise. Mal's in a bar and a fight breaks out.
What happened?
And so we cut from there. We go to our credit sequence, and then we cut from credits. We're back on the Bridge of Serenity, and this is where we learn that we're going to be docking at Persephone for a little while. We see Zoe and Wash kind of talking about it, talking about how it's almost a second home. And then Mal comes in and immediately is like, Persephone ain't home. And for him, home literally is just the ship and nowhere else.
Yeah. It's interesting to get a sense of Mal's displacement in the universe, because this is this incredibly complicated geography of planets and moons in this, whatever system this is. He moves from place to place. You're right. He's only happy when he's traveling, when he's on Serenity with this particular crew, because, well, I guess that's the question. Is he happy because this is a space that he controls? Is he happy because this is only ever a temporary space, because he doesn't have to play by anyone else's rules? What do you guys think?
That's really interesting.
I'm going to go with the last one there, because he makes the rules here. Like, this is I really think that that's why he's so comfortable, because he is a societal misfit now, but he's got this code. He's got that inner code, whatever it is, that cowboy code. And this is the place where he, can institute his own rules of the game.
Yeah.
And where he can pick his people, too.
Yeah.
Like, he picked his crew. He picks who he works with.
I wonder if part of it also, because of the way that the Battle of Serenity Valley ended up, where, like, they were stuck there. They were stuck in the Valley of Serenity for a week, like, and they could not get out, and they were trapped in that space.
Yeah.
I wonder if, Serenity, the ship, is Mal's way of not ever getting trapped in a space again.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Though, even in so doing, he's created, a
big metal
replica
trap,
of that.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. He's carried a piece of Serenity Valley with him. No, that's really interesting. I think it's both of those answers, I think, and, probably a dozen more, because Mal is legion and contains multitudes.
Indeed.
A quick note on that bar brawl that I wanted to bring up is that Adam Baldwin, Jane, insisted on doing the majority of his own fighting in there, even though in the commentary they mentioned that his stuntman looks exactly like him and it's real easy to use, but he was like, I want to be doing as much of this fight as possible. And it does seem like a more vigorous fight than usual. So I really appreciate that.
Really excited.
Adam Baldwin's super into his role and it's like, I want to be this character.
Playing Jane had to have been one of the most fun things that man ever did in his life.
I would think so.
Every episode, again and again, I just keep saying, I love Jane so much. Even when he's deplorable, even when he's saying terrible, horrible, awful things, I love me a big old dummy. I just love that.
Well, and this was excellent fight choreography.
It really was.
It was so much fun. And the stunts were awesome. The guy flying over the bar into the mirror.
Yeah. That's the one that really stood out to me. That's an incredible, because we're paying such close attention to the choreography of the fights in Buffy and in Angel. And this is a whole other tier. This is amazing.
It's great choreography. All of it was so much fun to watch. And the stunt team was just having the time of their lives. Apparently, Adam Baldwin.
After the credits, we get that scene with Mal, Zoe, and Wash, where Mal says, we don't kiss the dirt. Zoe says, wasn't planning on kissing dirt, sir. And Wash says, I wouldn't stand for it anyway, Captain. Jealous man like me. And I think that really sets up one of the things that the writer of this episode mentioned is that she loved Zoe and Wash and wish she could have written more of them. They weren't involved that much in the story, but that's why we get those moments with them in this episode, because she really loved them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Does, especially because I've said before that I don't really get the Zoe Wash dynamic most of the time, except in this episode. This is the most I ever like them, and I really like them a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just because they're written like so naturalistically in this episode? Like they're not at odds, they're really working together?
Yes, I think so. Because I see their partnership more. Usually I don't see them as partners. I see them, I don't know, on their opposite ends of the spectrum and doing what they do. So it's hard for me to get in my mind what the two of them are together. And like last week, we had the joke, where she says we're very private people, and Wash then goes on and on about her legs and her ass. And I'm like, I don't like this. I know it's a funny joke, but I don't actually like this as me looking in on their relationship.
Right.
Whereas this time I see them together and I see their comfort with one another. I see their intimacy level. I see their sense of humor. And it just starts to make sense. Like them as a couple makes sense more.
One of the things with the commentary on this episode is that we got to hear from the costume designer.
Ooh.
And so there's a lot of interesting points that she brings up. But one of them that I had been wondering about was Zoe's necklace. The boot string or whatever it is that's tied around her neck. And she said specifically that the necklace is representative of her marriage bond to Wash, kind of like a wedding ring, I assume. And that's why she never takes it off throughout the series.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do like that a lot. And I like that it's something that's very different.
Yeah.
And also very visible.
Yes.
Do you think it's
for someone
his
who's like a
boot
soldier
string? Like,
type.
did he rip that off of one of his boots and like gave that to her?
That was the proposal. He got down on one knee, realized he didn't have a ring, looked down in his boot and just pulled the string out. She's like, what are you doing? And he's like, will you marry me? And she's like, what is happening?
No, headcanon accepted. That is absolutely what happened. 1,000%.
Sounds
they were
like
in
Wash.
space. They don't. You can't just like pop into a Zales out there.
Yeah, he originally tried to convince her to put it around her finger, like that was going to work, and she's like, "Oh, honey," and just put it around her neck.
I like that a lot. Do you guys think that there's a problem with the show? This, I guess, is to address your point, Liz, about Wash and Zoe. Do you think that the show has stumbled a little in establishing this relationship by this point? I mean, we're 4 episodes deep at this point, and maybe we should have a better sense of them as a couple in their primary relationships with each other, rather than mediated through Mal and the rest of the crew.
What do you think? I know you have.
I obviously do. Yes. Yeah. Especially coming into it with the freshest of the eyes. If it's taken them this long, and I actively disliked them last episode. Their relationship together bothered me. There were 2 spots in that episode that really bothered me personally. So it was good to have this turnaround so that I could finally, grab onto the 2 of them and like them. And I believe I carry that after this. So they must have continued to get better as the series went on. But I do think, they stumbled out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think they were playing for the jokes too much, and I missed the heart.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them as a couple, but I do think with such a big cast that it's hard to focus in. And they do give us those moments and those small things in the earlier episodes, but it doesn't really add up to what I would want for them. Yeah. And it's only looking back at the whole series that I really love them. It's hard for me to remember how I felt originally going in.
I tend to believe whatever the writers and creators are putting on screen in front of me. So I
really
rarely question stuff that happens. And so I'm just like, oh, they're married, they're in love, cool. I'm in. I believe it.
What's your thought then, Alastair?
I think that the problem is, and it pains me to say it because I love her in so many ways, but I think the problem is Zoe. I think that Zoe is a placeholder in the first 2 or 3 episodes in a way that none of the other characters are. We get insight immediately into Inara and Kaylee, and even into Simon, and to a lesser extent River. We get into Shepherd Book. I mean, we get so much insight into Shepherd Book, albeit ambiguous insight. But Zoe is almost conceptually this pillar. She is simply Mal's Lancer. She is his right hand, and that's a powerful role, and it's a role that I love as she develops through the series, as we get more access to her interiority and her place, not just in the geography of Serenity, but in the web of interconnected relationships that fill that ship. I think that ultimately she becomes great, but she's just a little underwritten, a little underdeveloped in that first instance, and that's a problem, particularly when Wash shows up as the comic relief so often, as the heart of the team. He's there, she's not entirely, and what bond she has is primarily with Mal, which is, of course, the subject of the forthcoming War Stories, maybe my second favorite episode in the show's run.
That one I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because I do know that some of that conflict comes up. And again, it's just like this in the back of my mind, some memory, but to really look at it analytically and to think about their relationship in particular, because it's been a little weird. It's been a 3-person marriage so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to your thoughts on War Stories. That's going to be a good episode.
It's going to be a really good, I'm looking forward to
Buckle up, y'all.
So, Alastair, you just mentioned the heart of the team and then also Zoe being Mal's Lancer, which I know are 2 aspects of the 5-man band. So do you want to talk to us about that?
Sure. I think one of the most interesting things about the 5-man band, particularly in the context of Firefly, is that it is contained. It is a contained unit of cast. We're not including everyone. The crew of the Serenity, the crew of Serenity, I should say, the family of Serenity is 5 people strong. That's where we come into the series. We have Mal as the hero. We have Zoe as his Lancer. The role of the Lancer is an ambiguous one. The Lancer serves as a counterpoint.
Me the most, so that makes sense.
Because there are 15 different versions of the Lancer.
Right.
The Lancer is just a counterpoint to whatever the captain is. In this particular instance, Mal is wry and is witty and is morally dubious, and Zoe is none of those things. She is stalwart and steadfast and a clear line in the sand. Zoe represents the part of Mal that is necessary for him to do his job, necessary for him to be the man that he is, but isn't contained within him. I could take an example from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of course, another Whedon series that has a perfect 5-man band at its heart.
Yes.
We have the hero, Buffy, of course. We have the heart, oftentimes referred to as the chick, but that's kind of unpleasant, so I like to refer to it as the heart. The heart is the presence that unifies the team. The heart simply tells the team that it is a team.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in Firefly, that turns out to be Wash. It can also be Kaylee in Firefly. In Buffy, pretty much across the board, it's Xander. Xander is the one that gives the Scoobies their identity. We then have these paired opposites, the strong guy or the big guy and the smart guy. just physical strength and mental strength, obviously. The Lancer there occupies a space that mediates between the captain and the others. So in Buffy, we have Buffy as the hero, we have Xander as the heart, we oftentimes have Angel or Spike or Riley or, whichever guy is present in the core team as the big guy, as the muscle, as the strength. And then we have both Willow and Giles serving as the smart guy, depending on the episode, or the Lancer, depending on the episode. If we're doing a high school story, then Giles will be the smart guy, and he will deliver all of the exposition, and he will deliver all of the information, and Willow will be there as a counterpoint to Buffy. Counterpoint perhaps isn't even quite the right word, but she's there as a harmony with Buffy.
Yes.
She reflects and complements and does the things that Buffy can't do. If we're not doing a high school story, if we're doing a Demon of the Week story, or particularly in the later seasons of Buffy, we're doing an apocalypse story, then oftentimes Willow will be the smart guy. She'll give the exposition. She'll give the information. And Giles will be there to mediate Buffy, to complement Buffy, to harmonize with Buffy. So the hero and the Lancer together form... It's a really intimate, really powerful bond, I think, because it is only through the union with the Lancer that the hero is capable of being the hero. And I see that very clearly with Mal. Does that work for you guys as an explanation of Mal's relationship with Zoe?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally.
It is helping. Yes, it is helping. And also hearing that laid out helps me understand why I was confused by it, or the 5-man band in general, because I didn't realize how fluid it was. Now I realize how fluid it is.
Absolutely fluid, yeah.
I was just going to say, so it's really more to further the plot than to further the character then, right?
It can be, yeah. Though you certainly get examples of long-running TV shows where you'll continually cycle characters in and out of these various roles, and you'll find this one particular episode, this time around, the strong guy is the heart. This time around, we're telling a story that casts him in that role, that, casts Jane, for example, in that role.
Right.
Yeah.
So that can give you, you're right, absolutely fluidity, but it can also give you increased insight and increased internal emotional dynamism.
I think it also will depend on whether you're seeing this trope in like a long-running TV series, or are you reading a book where you're not having to, like, where people aren't having to change quite as much? Or are you watching a movie where you've just got 2.5 hours with these 5 folks and they're going to like stay pretty static?
Right. Because we talked about it in, was it Guardians of the Galaxy?
I think so, yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy has a great 5-man band. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic has a great 5-man band.
Excellent.
Star Wars is a really interesting example. If you track the original trilogy of Star Wars, you will see an incredibly fluid array of 5-man bands as characters enter and depart the story. It's a really interesting way of deconstructing that story and the internal relationships. But in Firefly, we get a relatively fluid core group. Wash and Kaylee, I think, are the two most interchangeable because they both occupy that smart guy / heart dynamic, which is great. But Mal and Zoe are made of impermeable stuff. They are just rock solid, and that's fascinating. And it's all the more fascinating because that core team isn't completely representative of the crew of Serenity. We also have Shepherd Book, and we have Inara, and we have Simon, and we have River. So we have these other characters who orbit and interact and who can step into that 5-man band as needed. But pretty much that's how I see it working in Firefly. And this is not an exact science. So I'm sure that many of your listeners will have their own perspectives on how it works.
So then we cut to Inara's shuttle where she is going through her Facebook profile and deleting friends.
Essentially.
No, she's finding clients for Persephone.
Right?
Yeah, she's swiping on Tinder.
Oh, companion Tinder. We landed on it. Excellent. Yep.
Oh man, so we see she watches the one video of the young kid. So they're different,
perfect.
right?
That guy is perfect. Flatters my honor. Oh God, what have I done?
She's immediately
me
like,
on the
no,
phone call.
click.
We've all been there, I think. Or God, I have anyway. Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So while she's going through and checking out this client list as they're coming into Persephone, she receives a phone call from Atherton Wing.
Well, who so far looks nice, I would like to point out. I mean, yes, we all know he's but he starts out seeming like a nice, gentlemanly young man.
No, I don't trust anything about that man for the second he shows up on screen.
Okay.
I hate him.
You are not Mal.
This is my question. Atherton and Inara have a long-running relationship. They are familiar with each other. He is going to, in the course of the episode, turn out to be kind of deplorable and reprehensible.
Yes.
Does she know that? Is this a new development in his character? Because
That's a really good question.
When she answers the phone at the beginning of the episode, she seems really genuinely pleased to see him.
She does.
But is that simply the art of the companion, or has he changed?
I kind of feel like he's just never been threatened before. And it was
That's
when it was
fair.
threatened
Interesting.
of her being taken away and him not having her, that's when that side of him came out.
Especially because Mal is so far outside of like this type of world that Inara and Atherton are a part of, and for Atherton to see this scoundrel basically coming in and very obviously charming Inara, we see when they're at the party and they're dancing, as they finish their dance, Inara and Mal like bump shoulders and are laughing together, and that, I mean, like sets Atherton off like that. Immediately he's over to grab her and yank her away. So I think that's a very good point, and it's entirely possible that he's a rich dandy who's always gotten what he wanted and never needed to resort to being the worst.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even necessarily put it down to his circumstances, but definitely I think that's a part of his personality is that he can charm to get what he wants, and it's probably not even entirely insincere. Like I think that he does. I think that he prefers Inara to the company of any other companion. I think that's true. I think that that he would be genuinely disappointed if he ended up going to this ball with somebody else, or if she turned him down. But yeah, it's when he loses his control over her and his manipulation of her. Am I too close to this? Anyway, it's when he. But when he loses his control over her and his manipulation of her, he feels very personally threatened because he has that line, "I know what's mine." And then suddenly he doesn't know what's his anymore. And that's when his true colors come out that probably surprise even him. I think he thinks he's a nice guy.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's entirely possible, though. Throughout the episode, we see that he doesn't see Inara the way that he should. We get a couple of beats, and they're very telling. I think when they arrive at the party in the first place, and he comments that every man in the room wants to be in her bed. Yeah. He's seeing her as a physical creature of immense and unsurpassed beauty, absolutely, but that's all. Right at the end of the episode, after I'm just jumping all over the place here, I apologize.
It's okay, we do that too.
You can cut this out if you want to. But at the end of the episode, he threatens, he says that he should have uglied her up so that no other man would want her. Because, of course, no other man would want her if she wasn't possessed of this beauty.
Right.
He sees no deeper than her skin. And that's such an eloquent counterpoint with Mal throughout the episode, who sees right to the heart of her. It's beautiful. And Atherton Wing is the worst.
The worst!
Worst.
The worst.
Hate that guy.
Hate that guy.
Jeez.
He seemed so
no,
nice.
yeah, he absolutely thinks that Inara is this very interesting like person to like collect and to having to show off and to be like, look at how much more my status is raised by the status of this beautiful, enchanting woman who knows everybody at the party.
Yeah.
She's going around and saying hi to everyone.
Yes, makes him look very good.
Yeah, she makes him look great.
Yeah.
More like Atherton, guys, am I right?
You have never been
have you
more
been
right.
sitting on
Never
that?
been more right than you are right now. It's particularly telling because you guys have done such a fantastic job of analyzing Inara's character and what she actually represents, what the life of a companion actually is. Because the show, and this again I think is a function of its brevity, the show generally diminishes her role to that of a prostitute. You know, particularly when Mal is talking to her.
Yes.
But as you guys have discussed, she's so much more than that. She is a spiritual being. She is a counselor, a companion in the truest sense. And for those elements of her character, not her profession, but her character, to be completely overlooked by Atherton Wing, it's, that guy.
He's the worst.
Atherton. I'm just going to go with that.
Atherton Wing.
Atherton Wing.
For the rest of the episode. So she gets off the horn with him, I guess, and then Mal comes in, and he and Inara have a brief conversation, just about society and culture, and just the party and all of this. Is that conversation that they have, is that super duper necessary? Do you guys think? Because I feel like we could cut straight to Persephone. I don't feel like I don't know if I just didn't catch like what we're trying to do with the two of them in that particular conversation.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Vinton, is there any kind of hint that the network was leaning on this episode to kind of function as an introductory point again Because I feel that Serenity certainly, and then we had hints of that in the train job. We had hints of that even, I think, in Bushwhack. But do you think there's any pressure there?
Well, I don't know if the network pushed them to do it, but I know that both creators wanted the first 4 to 5 episodes to feel like introductory episodes because they know that people can come into a TV show on any given episode. So they wanted each one to start off as an introductory for new viewers who had not seen the episodes that came before.
Okay, that makes sense. And that absolutely answers my question then.
So that conversation that they have then, we think is just so we understand the Mal and Inara dynamic. Like it's just so we get, he doesn't like her job, but obviously they're into each other. That's the whole.
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because it did lack depth, I thought.
Yeah.
And
it felt unnecessary to me, but I guess if again,
it's like you saw that they're both smart, witty barbs. They both know the right way to the right thing to say to get to the other one, which I guess is important. But it was protracted for that.
Yeah,
like 1 or 2 lines would have been fine. So that makes more sense. Okay,
okay,
I'm following
that line where Inara says less petty theft and getting hit with pool cues. It was originally when that opening was going to be different than walking through like the forest area. Mal was going to shoot a raccoon in the eye. I don't know what was going to happen there, but the line was going to be somewhat less shooting small animals in their eye sockets, which is a funny note there. I don't know how that would even work, but I like
about this podcast is learning about the bizarre first drafts of these episodes.
So strange.
Specificity is the soul of comedy, clearly.
And then he shoots a raccoon in the eye.
Right.
Moving on.
Of course.
What?
Well, the other weird thing, I just remembered this about this scene, is the camera angle they use on Mal. They're way down. They make him look big and menacing. They make her look small and meek. I'm like, what are you doing? What are we doing?
It's a weird. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I love this episode. I really enjoy this episode. I think the direction for this episode is a little weird in parts. And
That's
it's
fair.
not my favorite direction-wise occasionally. I'm just like, why did we have this scene go on as long as we did? Why is this camera angle this way? It feels very different from our previous episodes, but all of our previous episodes have been Joss and Tim Minear. So, of course, it would be very, very different.
Very clear.
Yeah.
And it can be a little jarring, I think.
I think that's particularly noticeable in the Badger plot thread, I guess, when everyone's being held in the cargo bay. That is a real space. That is actually just this cavernous space that you can shoot any way you like. And yet, throughout this episode, it feels weirdly segmented and fractured, and you don't get a sense of the layout. It's a challenge. I can imagine that directing an episode of Firefly is not something that you undertake lightly, but
Sure, of
Good
course.
call. Yeah.
it doesn't quite hit the mark that, as you say, Joss and Tim Minear established so beautifully.
Right, exactly. So moving on, we finally land on Persephone, and we are walking through the busy market streets. We see Kaylee admiring all of the pretties in all of the shops. And
This is a great scene.
it's a wonderful scene. Kaylee and Zoe and Wash all talking about like slinky dresses and all of this, and you can just see Mal getting more and more irritated behind them. Especially as soon as Kaylee starts talking about all of the gifts that Inara has received from all of her different clients, and Mal snaps at her and is like, "You'd look like a sheep on two legs in that get up," and just
the crappiest thing to say.
damn it, guys, quit picking on
Yeah.
Kaylee.
He really hurts her, and
He really does.
You almost get that idea of a father-daughter thing, where the father says something because he doesn't understand how a daughter feels, and really hurts her, and she like gets emotionally upset at that. But you almost see that relationship there between them.
Right, exactly. And then we have Zoe absolutely stepping up to defend Kaylee, just grabs it like Mal
I
has
love
been
that she takes the bag.
Yeah,
and
takes the
bitching
bag.
about
He's
it.
like, I'm not
Excuse me,
hauling
but he's
feathers here.
complaining.
Just like takes that from him. See you on the ship, Captain, and then
Right.
walks off. And then I love Jane just looks at. We get the camera back on Mal's face. He realizes he's made a mistake, and Jane just goes, "What, is she angry or something?"
So clueless.
Oh, Jane.
Oh, Jane. Immediately after this, we have Badger and his thugs show up,
Yep,
and they
the
tell,
return.
yes, the return of. I love Mark Shepard.
Yeah.
So,
Mark
so
Shepard
much.
is the
So much.
greatest.
He's
He
so
is
good.
so
Also,
great.
Mark Shepard is the reason that it's the same thugs from the previous episodes, because apparently he really liked working with those guys and insisted
yeah?
that they bring them back if he was going to be back on the show.
No, bring me my cronies. I desire them.
Yes.
I desire cronies.
I desire cronies. So Badger tells him that they've got a job and he's not asking questions. We head over to Badger's lair, and he explains about how there's this guy, Warwick Harrow, who wants them to do a job, but he won't deal with Badger directly, but maybe he would talk to Mal, and tells them about this party that you couldn't get in. You couldn't buy an invite if you had a diamond the size of a testicle, but he's got his hands on a couple. And that is my very favorite joke.
Yes.
I love that joke.
It's
I
a
know I
good joke.
shouldn't. It's a good
It's a really
joke.
good joke.
And it's
man.
beautifully executed because if you
Yes.
held that shot for like a half second less, if you'd cut
Yes.
away sooner, if you'd done the reveal sooner, it wouldn't have worked. I love the restraint there.
Yeah,
again-
and the little chuckle between Mal and James
Yes.
is just the best.
Again, talking about first drafts, the writer here had this joke be a lot more obvious because Mal was going to go on 2 testicles. And Joss Whedon actually stepped in here and said, no, let's leave this a little bit more vague and just let it be the look. And I think that really was a good call.
That was a good call.
Absolutely, yeah.
Also, Jane adding sugar to his drink the entire scene is totally improv
not
by
notice.
Stuffing sandwiches. in
totally
yourself.
improv by Adam Baldwin.
Really?
And Mark Shepard pointed out that this scene was a lot longer, and they were end up filming for like over 3 hours for this
my
one
gosh.
point. And Jane, or Adam Baldwin specifically, was eating and drinking the entire time. He just kept eating sandwiches and kept drinking and pouring more sugar and just drinking sugary
Oh
tea.
boy.
Oh, that's really bad
Yeah.
sandwich and tea later.
I
They
do.
look like tuna salad sandwiches. You don't want to eat them. You sit down under heat lamps.
We've talked about this before. Oh man,
I do
Gross.
love it though when actors have such a great hold on their character that little bits and pieces that they add in and things that they do on the fly not only absolutely work but just give you the full vision of who the character is, especially when you've got it's what, a 45-minute show?
Yeah.
So much of that characterization is going to come from these little ticks, from these little movements, from these little choices that you make, and I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, also my favorite part of this scene, I think, is when Badger's talking and he's telling Mal, you treat everybody like you're better than them or whatever. You're, what's the word? And Jane just goes, pretentious? And then Mal's face just, how the hell do you know that word?
Full of surprises, that Jane.
So what do you guys make of that exchange? I find that fascinating. Badger says, exactly, you think you're better than other people. And Mal says, just the ones I'm better than. And that very quality is the one I think you're placing value on today. Does Mal think he's better than other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yes.
I do think so.
I
Okay.
absolutely believe so, yeah. I think that even though, because we've talked about before on the podcast about how Mal doesn't think that he's a good guy,
Yeah.
but he, even last week, when talking about the battle in Serenity Valley, said, it was the losing side. I'm not sure that it was the wrong one. Like, I think that Mal has a very clear sense of justice, and I think that he thinks that he's better than people who he considers wrong.
That's really interesting. I think it was during the live tweet for the first episode. I said something on Twitter and I got yelled at by Liz for it because I said that
Surely
I
this
said
didn't
that
happen.
Mal was burdened with the worst thing that a man like that can carry with him, which is hope. And I think that there's something to that idea. Yeah, you're right. He holds himself apart because he is, maybe more morally pure. Maybe
Yes.
there's something to that.
Certainly idealistic and romantic.
Yeah.
I mean, like
It's the idealism. I
Yeah.
mean, he has this idea in his head of the man that he could be, and because he wants it so much, like that's the man he could be is Mal's own idol, right? And he is in this world where the opportunity to be that man has been stripped from him. So I think you're right, Alastair. So this idea of the hope for what the world could be and what he could be in it just taints everything that his world is and everything that he is.
Yeah, beautifully put.
Thanks.
So we cut from here to the ball. And
I love everything about
yes,
this.
I really like, and I've never really paid attention to this before, that Badger does point out that they have new tech gun scans, and you get to see that immediately. There's a barrier there that if you have a gun, it's going to catch you and not let you in until you give it to them.
I love that you see that guy get stopped to get the gun, and his wife straight up is just like, "Oh my God, Gerald," and like just keeps going without it.
Gerald.
Every
Come on,
time.
Gerald.
Can we not go to a nice party just once?
I can't believe. I mean, when I first started watching the show, my sister tried to get me to watch the show. I don't even know how many times. And I was always like, yeah, it's fine. I get it. I suppose. Whatever. It's weird. And then this episode comes, and I'm like, okay, now we have a Jane Austen movie, also with cowboys and in space.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm completely in. I'm in now. Everything. This is my thing. It's for me. And and I love everything.
The writer specifically was excited about this episode because she's a Jane Austen fan and wanted to write it that way.
It's so obvious. This scene, all of this with the dancing and the dialogue is classic Austen movies too. It's a throwback to that. There's a lot of it in the costuming. But what's really interesting in the costuming here too is that there are so many different eras represented because
Which I think
Katie's
that makes
dress
perfect
is
sense. sense.
very antebellum.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Inara has more of the classic Austen. There's the Empire waisted bust line, and we see a woman with a very like medieval Renaissance hat, very like a Shakespeare play, community theater. By the way, the set though at the ball. It's really community theater, right?
It's not super
It is a little. It is a little. Yeah.
Terrible.
We're
faux
clearly
finishes.
in a smaller soundstage here for the ball scenes.
Well, and the giant pillars that somebody was just like, oh, I know how to do a faux finish in marble. Let me at it. I can do it, Joss.
Yeah. I also like that Atherton is wearing a traditional Indian suit as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which looks very sharp.
And this speaks to the world building that runs through the whole series. This far future world that is deliberately echoing, that is deliberately replicating these anachronistic ideas and kind of jamming them all together as though poorly understood. And I think that that's very deep in the world building. You get the sense that the Earth that was has been not entirely forgotten, but has become fictionalized, and these lines have begun to blur.
That.
All of these histories are running together and these stories are being repeated. I find that absolutely fascinating, particularly with regard to the application of technology. You know, you guys talked brilliantly about the holographic billiard balls and the holographic window. We've got this amazing technology and we can still make it look like cowboy times.
Yes.
Yes.
There's no reason for the typography on the bar window to be, circa 1860, but
Right.
Yes.
it's going to be, because of course it's going to be.
Yeah.
I love the show. I don't know if I've mentioned it. I love the show.
It's a great show.
And speaking of the costuming, one other note that I had that I'd never noticed before until I listened to the commentary, and the costume designer pointed out, Inara's dress was made incorrectly and doesn't close in the back. It looks purposeful.
It does look
but
purposeful.
it's only halfway closed
Wow.
because they made it wrong and it didn't fit her. And I guess the top part of it they put on upside down or something, and it wasn't the right shape. And so the set designer had to go back in and sew it in such a way that it looked purposefully open in the back.
Wow.
But you can totally see after hearing it that it's completely unzipped.
Wow.
That is
I
a
love
working
that
definition of happy accident right there. That's-
Right? And we all get Marina Baccarin back.
Yeah, I mean, she's-
There's a joke there. I missed it, but there
Again.
was one.
A gorgeous woman. Beautiful woman.
Pretty lovely.
Really lovely woman. Great actress. Nice looking back.
If you're into that.
If you're into that, which I
you
am.
like
so.
SpongeBob.
You okay, Sarah? Do you need a moment?
dripping
You just-
Yeah, maybe.
Water.
Hang on. We'll be all right.
I'll be in my bunk.
It's been a hard day. I'm just going to think about Marina Baccarin's sponge bathing.
So it's at this moment that Atherton offers Inara a permanent position as his personal companion, which we'd all like to do, as we just realized.
To have Inara as my personal companion? Yes, please.
We're
I
all
can't
just
afford her, but
geeking out
yeah.
over here. So I guess you can't blame him for that offer.
You say that, but I think there's something that's very demeaning about the offer to be his personal companion as opposed to be his partner, which
Right.
is very
Well, no, absolutely. I think that's part of the thing.
Yeah.
Is that
It's-
like, I want you to be my consort forever, but
Yes.
I'm not going to marry you.
It's very similar to
or
that.
attend to you and your needs.
It's very similar to that opening introduction that we have to Inara, where the boy is saying, "Oh, I'll save you from this life. My father's very important."
Yes.
Yes.
It's very similar to that idea, for
is.
sure.
Yeah.
All these
Well,
men
she
want
also
to...
has that line too, though, about I could belong here, and there is an appeal in that. That's a very interesting line from Inara too. The idea of belonging, because we talked earlier about how it's clear that she doesn't, that she is outside of, my world. If it is that, she says later. I don't know. I find that very interesting that she does want to belong somewhere and yet not belong to someone. Which don't we all?
Yeah.
Here.
That's when we get Mal and Kaylee entering the ball. And I love Kaylee's name announced here. I'm assuming it's not her real name. They gave a fake name.
Oh, no, I think it's her real name.
It's Kaywinnett Lee Fry. Which
Yes.
is great. Which I just love. Yeah.
No, I think if it wasn't her absolute real name, that it wouldn't have turned Inara's head like it did.
Right.
She wouldn't have put it
Yeah,
together.
that's true.
Yeah, I think that was her real name.
Fun story. When I went to that Tulsa con where I got to meet Jewel Stady and get my picture taken with her, there was a little girl in line in front of me there with her dad whose name was Kaylee and was named after Kaylee on
my
Firefly.
gosh.
And it was the most darling
That
thing.
is-
I bet it was.
That was a great day.
That is a
I bet it was
good
great for
thing.
her too.
Another wardrobe note is that the hoop skirt that Kaylee's wearing under her dress
It's like
is
50 pounds, right?
It's from The King and I, the original of The King and I. They borrowed
I'm sorry,
it from
I just
Voss
lost my mind a little
and had
bit.
to-
Oh my
had
God,
to
Deborah
be
Carr.
very careful with it because of that. And I don't understand why they would even get to borrow it. Why it seems like you could
just
easily do something else, but they borrowed that.
Gosh. I loved that movie so hard when I was a little girl. I wanted all of those crazy, insane hoop skirt dresses.
Also,
wow. That's amazing.
Jewel Stady has a funny note about how she accidentally peed on the dress because it was so big that she couldn't really use the restroom properly. And she had to film half the show knowing that there was a little bit of pee on the dress and try to drink a lot less water throughout the rest of the filming.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I can't. No, that's the end of the episode. Bye. See you next week.
You really are Kaylee, aren't you?
Sometimes you do something that you just know is going to be in the trivia section of your IMDb page for the rest of eternity.
Ever.
That's it.
Oh my God.
You pee on one dress.
And the world's most perfectly ridiculous dress.
Yes.
Oh my Lanta.
Wow.
Okay.
So enter Mal and Kaylee, and we get this great Gosa moment where she's like, damn it, Mal, not when I'm working, which I really like.
I like Mal's entrance where he sees the chandelier and he says, I mean, I see how they didn't. I just ain't getting the why.
It is a great
It's hovering.
line. Well, he feels so out of place, and yet he's being really arrogant about it because he's Mal, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, I didn't check this myself, but I read a note that when Kaylee points to the chandelier, you can see that at the top of the chandelier, the graphics team added in the one ring to rule them all with the Elvish script around it at the top of the chandelier.
Okay, I'll be right back.
You need to go confirm that.
You guys talk amongst yourselves. I have Netflix and an insatiable curiosity. It says so on my business card.
Best business card ever.
I'm looking at this scene again, Liz, and you're absolutely right. This is so very community theater. I love it.
Right?
We get that wonderful conversation between Mal and Kaylee where Mal's all like, okay, we're looking for this guy, Warwick Harrow. He wears a sash. And Kaylee goes, is that him over there? That's the buffet table.
Yes.
Well, how can we be sure unless we question it? And we were watching this earlier, and Liz goes, you really are Kaylee, aren't you? And I was like, through and through, 100%. Like, no questions asked.
And if you think about the first episode where she eats that strawberry, and now she's looking at a table full of
a
fruit.
literal, fountain and embarrassment of strawberries.
Yes.
Well, and my favorite line from that little exchange, though, is when she's like, oh, do you think we'll see Inara here? Oh, maybe, if we see her. I think she's wearing gold. I'm like, damn it, Mal.
You know exactly what she's wearing.
You
watched her leave the ship.
I like those two. I hate those two.
This is also where we get the line, yes, sir, Captain Tight Pants. Which I love. And it was actually, I found out the reason that's in the dialogue is it's an inside joke from where Mal kept ripping his pants in the first episode because they kept making his pants too tight.
Oh, that's amazing.
Is there such
Jane
a thing as too
Espenson,
tight?
You're a genius and a national treasure.
Oh, how funny.
Oh my gosh. So then Mal is able to find Harrow, starts talking to him about the job, and that's when we get Atherton just like sauntering on over and like, hey, excuse me, I get to talk to him now. It's my turn because privilege, I guess. And has Inara with him. And then Mal asks if he can have a dance with Inara, and Harrow turns to Atherton
Well, what
and
he
is like,
says is, what do you think about that chandelier almost outshines our girl? He's really... He's being an ass on purpose. He really is. And I mean, I love him. I love Malcolm Reynolds. I do.
Well,
Malcolm Reynolds is incapable of picking fights.
He even asks if he can call Atherton Ath. Can I call you Ath?
Can I call you ass face? Is that cool?
Now, it's before this that we get the small scene where they go back to the ship.
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
the rest of the crew are playing cards for chores. And that's a card game that the writer actually fully made up. She had to fully flesh out this card game. And there used to be the rules on the Firefly website, and I couldn't find them in the quick search last night, but I'm sure the rules are
I bet
still
we can
out
find
there.
them.
Yep.
Someone on
You can still find
Etsy
it to
made
play
those
it.
cards.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a Kickstarter somewhere for a full box set.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then you get to see River digging through the cans and messing up the food. And then Jane cheating at the card game after he had lost.
Of course, because Jane. One of my favorite things about this scene in particular is the cards that they got. You were saying, Vinton, that they're actual like Chinese, like thin metal playing cards.
Yeah.
And the prop designer, in order to make them look really old, like they're these shiny gold metallic cards, and to make them look older, they ended up like spray painting them with black spray paint, and then took basically like a wire brush and like scrubbed it off to make it look as though it was tarnished and like really old. And I just love the prop work in the show so much.
The practical effects are really
great. The attention to detail is phenomenal in in this show, and I just love that. How is River working for you guys right now? Because I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little tired of the whole River thing. 4 episodes in right now.
River in this scene is pretty consistently River. River in the later scene, when she's mimicking Mark Shepard, is a little across the line for me.
Yeah.
I would say that River feels a little shoehorned into the episode.
Yeah.
Like they're just wanting to remind you, hey, she's still here. I know we don't really have a part for her in the episode, but she's still here.
That makes sense.
I never really understood. I mean, understanding that this was supposed to be a season-long arc, the first of many season-long arcs,
Right.
I never really understood why we introduce River as early as we do. I feel as though we could have gone 3 or 4 episodes in before we had, the opening of the casket and the reveal of the girl. We could have led up to that mystery a little bit. But
That's a really good point,
because
actually.
she's left with nothing to do. We can't advance her story. So every week we have to have an obligatory 2-minute scene where she's just weird. And I love Summer Glau, and I think that what she does with River later is just extraordinary. But right now, it's a little undermotivated.
We also get that scene with Wash and Zoe.
Where they're post-coital Wash and Zoe.
Which is fantastic. I really love the gender swap that she's the one wanting to fall asleep. From the cultural... Well, yeah, the stereotype.
Sure. Well, and I like the hard cut, too, because Jane says... What's Jane say?
Are we going to play cards or are we screwing around? Hard cut.
Yeah.
A couple of them are just going to be screwing around, not playing cards.
This is the first scene between Zoe and Wash for me that feels like they're actually a couple, because they're using the shorthand. There's a playfulness. There's an intimacy there that we get to see too rarely in the series. This is just a perfect, beautiful little scene.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I like it. This scene is the most I ever like watching Zoe. Yep.
Yeah, the writer, Espenson, said that this scene, looking forward to the movie Serenity, she doesn't like it anymore because it seems to foreshadow really sad things for her.
Oh, no.
And after she said that, I was like, I'll never see this scene the same again.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, damn it.
I do really like Wash's poetry and him being like, oh, I'm okay with this happening. I have this great poem. It's such a fun scene.
Oh, dear.
Oh, she's all corpseified and gross.
Well, I love that she laughs out loud, that she giggles.
Yeah.
Turns around and throws the pillow at him.
Yes.
I really like that this is an episode where we see the combination of Zoe's badassery and her absolute femininity, because we didn't get that at first.
Yeah.
Like she could have been a man for any other reason in the first 3 episodes.
Sure.
They could have had her not married to Wash. She could have been a man. It would have been the exact same character.
I hadn't thought of that
in this episode.
But you're absolutely right. In an episode written by Jane Espenson, we're getting all of these different takes on femininity, and here's Zoe. You're right, showing up for the first time. I love that.
Yeah.
So cutting back to the ball, this is where you see Kaylee meeting the Mean Girls.
Oh, my gosh. Regina George.
Mean Girls. Damn it, Mean Girls.
She's
You be
walking
nice
around with
to
a
Kaylee.
grin, ear to ear, and she comes up
the
with
sweetest
to these
thing.
girls, and they just
There's some
destroy
sort of
it for
hot
her.
cheese over there.
Well, and first, remember, she gets shot down awkwardly by the guy.
Like the
She says
dude.
she says the super pretty, lovely thing that I would have talked to her all night long had she said that to me. When it's like, oh, aren't they lovely? They're like little pieces of wrapping paper blowing around. I'm like, you are charming and beautiful, and I will spend my whole evening with you.
Yes.
Instead, the guy's like, yeah, okay, bye. You know what? You don't
Stupid
deserve our
socialites.
Kaylee. Yeah.
I do like the line that introduces the Mean Girls where Kaylee says, what did they have last year? And the one girl says, standards. I'm like, I know who these girls are. I know them now.
You know them.
I went to school with these girls.
know them.
Knife to the heart.
But I love, and the one character in this episode that I would hang out with is Murphy, who I don't think it's
guy.
named,
Is
but
that
he's the
his
guy who
name?
comes up to protect.
the
and
best.
It'd be
It's
so good.
so amazing.
I
Of course, your
cannot
daddy
abide
tells me
useless-
it takes the space of a schoolboy's wink to get you out of that dress again.
He is the best.
Yeah.
And then forgive my rudeness, I cannot abide useless people.
That is one
I
of my
love
favorite
it.
lines
I
from
love
this
it.
episode. There are so many great lines in
Yeah.
this episode, but I cannot abide useless people. It's
Yeah.
a pretty
Yeah.
damn good one.
And because you can't really talk about the scene without connecting it to the one that comes in a second, I love when then you see him and the rest of the guys gathered around Kaylee, and she's talking mechanics, and they're all enthralled.
They are
with her.
so enchanted by her, yes. And like one guy even is like, Miss Kaylee, if I could have that, and they're like, let her talk.
Yes.
But again, it's both. They are seeing her because it's both everything that she has her expertise on, but it's also the way that she delivers a joke. It's also the fact that she has this radiant beauty. They see the full Kaylee picture, and I like it.
Yeah.
Which is the exact opposite of what Atherton is doing with Inara.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. And poor Inara, who is trying so hard to be seen because she does want to belong. And also Mal is here. Damn it, Mal.
And speaking of Mal, we now get to see him find his man who's wearing the sash, and we find out that Mal doesn't understand what the sash stands for.
It denotes lordship. And it's doing a great job.
Which I guess is a good point to introduce our two guest actors in this episode.
Yes.
Which is, of course, Atherton himself, who is played by Edward Atherton.
How interesting.
Who has not much of an acting career, to be honest.
I could tell.
He showed up on one episode of Alias.
Harsh, Sarah.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to throw shade. He is not going to be in my list. Of,
Right.
Anyway. He does a fine job.
Yeah, he's on one episode of Alias, one episode of Charmed, small role in the Iron Mask film, and really the most notable thing about him is that he dated Salma Hayek.
Wow.
I'm sorry,
Salma
wait.
Hayek.
There must be a problem with our connection here because for a second. Wow.
Yes.
I guess he's lovely.
Maybe he's got game. Yeah.
No, I know what, you guys, I know what it is. He's got stamina. Hey.
But moving on to the more notable guest star, we have Sir Warwick Harrow, played by Larry Drake, an actual Oklahoma native from Tulsa.
Really?
Who has small roles on Star Trek Voyager, Stargate, Justice League, and was known for his roles in LA Law, Darkman, the films, and was the voice of Pops in all the episodes of Johnny Bravo.
Oh.
And I was really sad to find out that he is one of the many celebrities that we lost this year.
Oh, no.
Which was a big bummer. This is the
that
second time I
is.
introduced a guest star, and he was somebody that we lost this year.
That's terrible. I thought that he did a fantastic job.
Yes,
I really
I love
enjoy
him.
Harrow throughout this episode.
He
I
does
think
do a great
that,
job.
yes, he did a really, really wonderful job with that.
Yeah, and
What can we
an
say?
important job too, because he stands in opposition to the conventions of his society. He's choosing
Yes.
to not be limited by the rules, or at least to be limited by the rules, but perhaps not by the formality of his society. There are too few people in this story that can do that, that get the opportunity
can
to
do
do that. Atherton is completely
Right.
bound. The mean girls are completely bound. Apparently, you just have to be an old white guy, and then you get to break the rules whenever you like.
I mean, that's
Too soon,
that's
Alastair.
basically the
Too
rule,
soon.
right?
Yep.
So that brings us back into the point of the episode where Mal and Warwick Harrow are trying to discuss business, and Warwick does not want to do business with him or Badger. And then Mal and Atherton meet up.
And Mal punches him in the face.
He sure does.
Which he deserved.
Well, and again, he picked the fight. Well, first, let's not skip the fact where Mal, or let's not skip the moment. I'm going to start that again. Let's not skip the moment where Mal notices Inara in the room finally. Because
yes.
this is really interesting to me. Because I wonder if he just recognizes her voice, or if he recognizes that she says, "Stop it." And then she laughs, and he says, "Oh, she's fine," and looks away. Could be nothing.
Yeah,
Probably not
great
nothing,
point.
though.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
No, that's,
I do
that's
like-
interesting. Yeah.
That we have Mal pulling away Inara for the dance, and they have that discussion, and you see Atherton say that line, "I know what's mine,"
I know
like we
what's
mentioned. At that point, I'm like, what the hell, dude? Get him, Mal. Get him.
Yeah.
Get him. Get him.
Although, again, Mal is also being a little bit possessive, I think.
Right.
So,
But you do get to see that intimate moment between Mal and Inara where Inara is kind of teasing him, saying, "Hey,
Yes.
I got this proposal." And Mal's like, "Well, I don't care. I don't, not hurting my feelings, isn't he?"
Oh my gosh. They're
these two.
teenagers. Ugh.
But as they come to blows, Mal hits Atherton, and we go into our Act 3 where Mal didn't realize what that meant in this
Yep.
cultured
He doesn't
society.
know.
He doesn't understand civilization.
Use of a sweat. That's another excellent line.
Mal is
Well-
a street fighter, which we're going to see in the duel, and so he doesn't understand
It's
that
true.
there's rules to dueling in a civilized society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we talk for a minute about the conversation that they have when they're dancing?
Yes.
Because this is another interesting thing for me. Mal's code and his talk about honesty. Like, as far as Mal's concerned, even though he is a thief, he's living an honest life. And it seems to me that he's not so much saying that, because she has sex for a living, that in itself is dishonest, but almost more and we'll have to talk about this more when we get to Heart of Gold.
Yeah.
Like, just sex isn't that dishonest.
Right,
But
right.
feigning intimacy, I think, really rubs Mal the wrong way. I think that because maybe he's so hard to get to, because he makes it work to gain that intimacy with him.
Because
maybe the fact that Inara gives it away. Go ahead.
Yeah, because that's maybe what he wants from her. That what he's craving is not
Oh, maybe.
the sex with Inara as much as it's the
Right.
relationship, the bond, that the intimacy that they have, but which neither one of them can really fully acknowledge. That's interesting. yeah.
Right. Unearned, maybe. Unearned intimacy, maybe. Interesting.
I really like when Mal is getting explained that this is now a duel, and he's like, "Oh yeah, guns. I can do guns." And they're like, "Nope, swords." And he's like, what?" And then,
Poor Kaylee's so nervous.
yeah, and then this is when I really get to love Sir Harrow.
Harrow?
Harrow? No,
Harrow? I think Harrow.
That's it. When he volunteers to be Mal's second in the
Yes.
duel, which just makes me think of the challenge, demand satisfaction. If they apologize, no need for further action. If they don't, grab a friend. That's your second. Your lieutenant. When there's reckoning to be reckoned. Hashtag Hamilton Podcast.
I like it.
Over on graphocast.com.
It's funny because actually on Fathoms Deep, we're also going to be talking about a duel this week. So it's all just coming full circle.
So
Yeah.
many duels.
These odd
We talked about the duel a
synchronicities.
long time ago, but
Yes.
yes. At this scene change, Badger joins the crew on the Serenity.
Yes.
And they think at first, "Oh, you're informing us so we can go rescue him."
Yeah.
And Badger's like, "Nope, I want to make sure none of you leave the ship because I don't want you to make me look bad."
I actually really appreciate Badger for like stepping in to do this kind of thing. He's like, Persephone's my home. I gotta
Yep.
work with the people here.
I
He's
like
such
Badger.
a little, he's such a squirrely little scoundrel.
Yep.
Yeah, especially when you see that Jane's like, "I'm just going to shoot him." And then they bring up Kaylee, and he has Kaylee. And
Poor Kaylee.
Jane can't shoot anybody.
She walks in her beautiful fluffy dress. Everyone looks over. She's just like, hi.
Which echoes
She's
that,
like-
that despondent line at the end of the last scene with the up until the punching. It was a real nice party.
It was a really nice party. Yeah. Kaylee just wanted to have a good time with the strawberries and the
And the
talking about
dress.
ships
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
dress.
Poor kid.
She can't catch a break.
We get the scene of Inara coming to visit Mal in the room that he's locked in. And I love that she brings this doorknob that is the key to the room, which is just a painted light bulb so that it lights up when she screws it into the socket of the door to open the door.
Again,
Excellent
prop work in
prop
the
work.
show.
Yes. So brilliant.
amazing.
Just fantastic. And the world building so subtle, so deep. I just love it. This, I'm just going to say right up front, this is the scene. This is my favorite scene in my favorite
Yeah.
episode. This is the whole point of the show. You can take away everything else that is Firefly and leave me with this and I will be happy. Thank you. This amazing conversation. It's just luminous.
Go on.
Yes, please.
It's everything that is Mal and Inara, and so often you set up these dynamics, you set up these relationships in an ongoing show like this. You prime them, you set them rolling, you set them moving, and there's never really a sense that you understand them, that you get the depth of them, that you get the complexity of them. And complexity is the word that keeps coming back to me as I think about this episode, not just for Inara personally or for Mal personally or for the relationship, but for Kaylee and for Wash and Zoe even. We get these beautiful portraits of characters in motion, characters who come together and who separate, who are imperfectly connected, imperfectly tied to one another, and who are perfectly tied to one another. We get the juxtaposition of this scene with the earlier scene between Wash and Zoe, where this intimacy is full and untrammeled and completely realized. And then there's Mal and Inara. And it's so close to complete. It's so close to that perfect world that Mal dreams of, this better world. Were he a better man? Were the world a better place? Were things just?
Right.
Then this would be different. But it isn't. So there's this beautiful tension. The writing is fantastic. The performances are amazing.
Yeah.
It's genuinely funny. This is the whole package for me. What do you guys make of it?
Yeah. I really like the way it ends because it ends with that tension of neither of them saying what they want to or what they need to say.
Yeah.
And it just leaves it hanging there.
Always talking, never communicating.
Yeah. Mal asks her not to take the offer, but They don't fully go into what they need to say.
Well, he asks, how did this get so complicated? And I think that was a really big question that had more to do with the duel.
He wasn't talking about the duel.
He wasn't just talking about the duel. Yeah, not just swords, though. Not just swords. Yeah. Because he says, I did think that I was defending your honor. And he says he's not going to back down from this fight. I don't back down. Yes, you do. You do all the time. But he won't.
But not over this, right? And this is as she's saying to him, you always break the rules. What are you talking about? There's no rule that you see that you won't cross. But there are. And he says, you think following the rules will buy you a nice life even if the rules make you a slave? That's not true either. We're both kind of arguing the greater case, perhaps, but not the specific case. We're not completely apprehending the complexity of the other. It's just lovely.
I do like that he gets to explain some of his behavior and the way that he treats Inara and then why he's upset, the way Atherton treats Inara, saying that I insult your career. He insulted you. Yeah. And that's different to me.
Yeah, the ways in which we draw those lines, I think, are fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Mal has drawn that line differently than Inara, because I think being a companion is more of Inara's identity as her career. And that's why it wounds her so much when he brings it up in that way. Maybe just because it's the life she chose for herself.
Well, it's the life she chose, and I mean, it is what she does, and maybe
she's good at it.
She's
That's probably
very, very good
too.
at it, and maybe she's one of those people who thinks that like what you do is what you are. So even though Mal is able to delineate between like this is your job and your job is not the person that you are, because this is Inara's livelihood. This is what she chose. This is what she wanted to do. I don't know. I mean, like, do little girls in this universe like grow up dreaming to become a companion to be able
I would
to like
not be surprised. Actually.
Yeah, you could believe it.
I mean,
sure.
it's such a because it's such a prestigious like standing in society.
Yeah.
And so for Mal to so flippantly say, I was insulting your job but not you, and for Inara those two things are so intermixed.
Yeah. And maybe that's why she does have equal problem with his thieving, with his thievery, because
if you steal, then you're a thief.
Then you're a thief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Man, great point. I do like that we get to see here that Inara is well trained in sword fighting to the point where she knows the amount of pressure it takes to break skin with a sword. I thought that was just great.
It was great. They teach you that in Horror Academy. Shut up, Mal.
Yes. Shut up, Mal. This scene is intercut with the scene where they go back to the ship and they show the crew trying to come up with a plan to overtake Badger. And Jane says, what we need is a diversion. I say Zoe gets naked.
No.
I could get naked.
No.
Why are we letting Jane make the plans?
Yeah, no,
Both
bad
of these
idea.
equally diverting to Jane.
Yes.
That's the only plan that he has. When all you have is a naked hammer, everything looks like a naked nail.
That's true.
I like that. Naturally.
That's the episode title.
They do get a diversion, but it's a diversion to all of them, so the crew doesn't get to act. River stumbles on the scene.
Yeah.
I like that Book shows Simon that she's there and then tries to divert Badger by standing in his line of sight. And Badger's like looking around like, what's that? What's over there? And has to walk
Badger's a
around
short
and
guy.
Book's
If I stand, like, just right in front of him.
Bold my shoulders and stand here and block everything from him.
He's a T-Rex.
I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this with you guys before, but Simon is a character that I have some trouble with. I don't warm to him immediately. I like him by the end of the series, but it's only watching this episode today that I realized this is the episode he comes into focus for me. This is the episode where I start to buy him as a character and not just as a token. He really works. There's more wit. Just when he's playing cards, he feels more like an actual person than he's been for some time. And I think you can read that textually too, that he's becoming more comfortable on the ship, that he's beginning to find his people, his tribe, his place. Again, one of the recurring themes of Firefly as a whole, but certainly of this episode. So Simon, I think, is surprisingly great in this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he does do really fantastic work, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, like it's nice when we're able to see our character. I mean, like last week we got to see the family playing Calvin ball down there in the galley, and this week we get to see the guys like staying home and basically like playing poker or whatever. I like somebody get in touch with Jane Espenson. I want to know what the rules of this card game were.
Yeah,
we'll figure figure it out. And so I always love whenever I get to see like characters like in their downtime, like just being able to be themselves and without like this external pressure being applied to them and them having to be like super heroic or whatever in that moment. Like they can just sit down and just be a person for a little bit.
Yeah. So River comes out and notices Badger and just mimics his accent and throws him way off his guard so he doesn't know what to do.
And all of us, frankly.
All of us get a
all of
little
us.
thrown off. Yeah.
We're all like, what is happening here?
It's a weird bit. I like it.
Yeah.
But it's a
it
weird
works.
bit.
And you were saying that Summer Glau actually had to sit down with Mark Shepard and he had to like read her lines to her for her to get that accent.
They sat for hours and hours in coffee shops going over this so she could try to talk like him, which I like the idea that if she has a psychic connection, and while it wasn't performed perfectly, but you never could really do it perfectly, accent of someone else. I like this idea that she's psychically connected to him in that moment, and that's how she's talking like him.
Oh, that's
So I like reading that
interesting.
into it.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way so much as I thought about this idea of like downloaded information, because she even says what, Titan Colony? Is that what
Yeah.
she says?
Anybody
from
off Titan Colony knows not to talk to strangers.
Right. So to me, I guess I thought of it as like this downloaded information because of like what happened to her, what was stripped away, and without getting into spoiler territory. Not that you can spoil something that's 14 years old or whatever. It is, but,
You'd be surprised.
but it could happen.
Yeah. I do like the way that ends with her saying, call me if anyone interesting shows up. And Badger says, I like her. And then Jane, that there, exactly the kind of diversion we could have used.
Great stuff. It really is.
It's great comedic punctuation right at the end of the scene. I love the concept of it. I love even the writing of it. I like the performance of it. It's just the accent, I think, just
the
sticks
accent's
out to
really
me.
bad,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's really rough.
It's
I
really
feel like she's
bad.
got marbles in her mouth. She's trying. I appreciate it. Accents are very difficult.
They're
Not everybody
hard.
has an ear.
But we've been
I
down this
almost
road
wish
before
they just cut it.
because we had Drusilla in Buffy. And it's exactly the same thing. And it took her, 35 seasons to get that voice anywhere near good. And now we're doing it again.
Then, like at one point, does the director just not say, you know what? It's just not working. That's fine. We're going to do another thing here.
I think if Mark Shepard didn't have such a distinctive voice, if it wasn't such a unique and identifiable speech pattern, then
Yes.
we could have got away with softening the mimicry a little bit. But I
Yeah.
think once you've
Yeah.
committed to it, you've got no choice but to. And as Vinton says, they spent days working on this, which I completely
I
buy.
suppose that's true.
But
yeah. Okay.
it's just maybe something that is outside of the range of, I think, any actor. Honestly, it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But conceptually,
yeah,
I
voice
like
work
the
is
beat.
very
I like
difficult.
this beat a lot more. Again, conceptually, I like this beat a lot more than I
Conceptually.
like the earlier beat in the galley. But
With
Yeah.
the can.
the execution here is a little weaker, unfortunately.
So now we go to the dueling grounds, which is clearly on fire, right, guys?
It's obviously middle of the day and not the break of dawn and on fire.
It is 1 p.m. in someo's
Yeah.
backyard.
Maybe they shouldn't have picked a place to die where it's high and dry.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing it again.
Well, what's weird is that I should have seen this. I should have expected this, and I super didn't. You're a delight.
I do like
Isn't he,
that.
Jess? We like him.
I do like that in the commentary track, you get the creators of the show mentioning, this fog does not work. And they're pointing out, like, look behind that tree. That's where it's coming out of. It definitely looks like that tree's on fire there.
And it's again, I wonder, I think you're right, Sarah. There are just some missteps with the direction in this one because at some point someone needs to just say, this isn't working.
Right.
Yeah.
I really do think.
I would be
but-
interested to know if the director had worked on anything prior to this or if this was his directorial debut, because it almost feels like a directorial debut. And I don't know, I would not, I mean, hopefully not, because I would not want it to be my first directing job after Joss Whedon and Tim Minear, and they're like, here you go, good luck. No, thank you. No, thank you, please.
So you have Mal joking like he's going to win this fight and doing
Oh,
well.
gosh.
But
I
he's
get so embarrassed for him.
Clearly outmatched by Atherton and falls for that trick and has
How
his sword
does he
broken.
fall for that trick? How?
I don't know. Mal
Mal is our guy. He's smart. He's
Yeah.
scrappy.
he's trying to impress Inara and impress everybody else there and be like, look at me,
He is
I'm outside
trying
of
to
your
impress
society,
Inara.
and here I am beating your society.
I do like to think it's the idea
Hubris.
of someone who, hubris, exactly. He wants to put on that he knows what he's doing when he clearly does not know how to sword fight, and that's going to hurt you even further than if you were trying to sword fight. Is you putting on that act of knowing what you're doing when you
Right.
clearly don't.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost feel as though he would be better off if he just put the sword down and just fought the
Yes.
guy
Yeah.
barehanded. But
Right.
again, rules and
Probably
boundaries
would
and
have
limits.
a shot then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He should have brought a
good
gun to
point,
the sword
yeah.
fight.
But he wants to beat them at their own game. Like that's
he
the
definitely
most important.
does.
Oh, yeah.
And we have that act break. We're now into Act 4, where Atherton has Mal on his knees, ready for the killing blow, and Inara distracts him, offering to stay with him. And Mal takes his chance because he's a street fighter, and he was
is.
tricked a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
and he's going to use this duel as the street fight that he wanted it to be, and sucker punches Atherton. And flings, I love that he picks up his broken blade and flings it into him.
Jams him right in that shoulder meat.
Which is, of course, when we get that information that you have to kill him because it's humiliating not to.
I love
And
Harrow.
Mal chooses not to.
Harrow throughout this entire sequence is just fantastic. Beginning with when
really
he
great.
offers consolation to Inara and says, "The end is coming, miss. You better not watch this." It's so graceful. I love that.
It is graceful. Yeah. And he also has one of my favorite lines we skipped over from earlier when he says, "You also mussed up Atherton's face, and that has endeared you to me somewhat."
So Mal stabs Atherton just a few times. We figure out
good
that
measure.
he's just all right.
He's just all right.
He's an okay guy.
Mercy's the
coulda
mark
told
of
you
a
that.
great man. Guess I'm just a
Stab.
good man. Stab. Well, I'm all right.
Excellent.
That line, that specific sequence was a Joss Whedon pitch for the script there. That was his.
Oh, of course. Naturally.
Of course it was.
I like it.
It certainly feels like one.
Yeah. It's classic Mal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then Atherton, with his dutiful, black-jacketed, white-gloved butler, who I believe is secretly in love with Atherton this whole time, and
absolutely.
it's just so sad that Atherton
looks
won't give
so
him time of day.
concerned and full
He's
of
like
compassion.
kneeling next to him, holding his body so
It's
close.
canon.
Atherton tries to yell at Inara, saying that he's going to make sure that she never works again, and then Inara steps
guy.
up and is just like, "That's not how this works."
Right.
Yes.
Which I think is brilliant. I think
It
it's
is,
wonderful that the entire system of like the way that companions work, they get to choose. These women
Right.
are in power, and these women have the agency and the choice, and they are the ones who control how all of this goes, especially because for basically all of history, the exact opposite has been true for every sex worker ever.
Yeah. I like this moment too because you expect Mal to come to the defense again and attack him and be really upset by this. And he is. It's written in there so that he can be by saying, "See how I'm not punching him? I think I've grown." And then Inara is the one who steps up and defends herself. And I think that's needed and necessary
Yes.
and
Yes.
good
Oh,
that
completely,
happens,
yeah.
that she has the chance to defend herself.
Yeah, that's a great point.
This is a controversial episode of Firefly because of the borderline applicable feminist critique that can be applied to it. That we basically objectify Inara, we turn her into a MacGuffin to motivate our core plot here. That Kaylee is outright, abused by Mal in the first instance, and is then sidelined, is turned into an object of ridicule. And I comprehensively reject
I was going to say
that reading.
What?
Yeah.
You can find it out there on the internet. This is one of the episodes that is used in the Joss Whedon is insufficiently good feminist argument that crops up from time to time, which is an argument I have very little patience for myself.
Right, yeah.
But the specifics of this plot demand a closer reading. They demand a more careful attention. The fact that Inara takes absolute agency at the end of the plot. She gets herself out of trouble there. The fact that Kaylee is...
And she teaches Mal
Right.
to duel. Also
Exactly.
teaches him sword fighting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kaylee is celebrated. When she is ridiculed, we are
Yes,
invited
she
to
is
criticize
celebrated.
those who ridicule her.
Yes.
When she is in her element, both at the party, after the party, and then our closing shot as she returns to her cabin, which is just
yes.
lovely. The richness and complexity of Kaylee is a thing to behold, and
Yes.
I love it. So I do think that there are, some imperfect criticisms of this episode out there on the internet, and I wanted to take the opportunity to defend what I think is a remarkably progressive and thoughtful and complex depiction of all kinds of femininity. And Liz, now that you've mentioned Zoe being wrapped up in that too, I'm going to have to go back and watch this again, is what I'm saying.
Well, if you have to.
Burden I bear.
Well, even Zoe, too, we kind of skipped over it, but when they were first talking about the dresses, and she was talking about the dresses that Inara gets to wear, that was a very feminine conversation that she and Kayla were having. It's one of the reasons that Mal was losing patience, because it was outside of his zone. And
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
And slinky,
she says,
too. She wants the slinky
dress.
dress.
A slinky dress is incredibly feminine.
Yeah.
And a different kind of feminine than Kaylee's.
Yes.
Also, Kaylee wants the frou-frou, which is great. It's very Kaylee. And even again, what Inara has and what she wears, although they admire those things, are not to their style or to their taste.
Oh,
There's
of course
these very different glimpses of femininity and what it means within the three of them. And I think it's great.
So now I'm imagining Zoe in her slinky dress and Kaylee in her foufara dress. Inara in her classic dress. You know, classic Schuyler Sisters pose is what I'm picturing here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Zoe.
Oh, man.
I really do like this line at the end of this scene, too, where Inara says, "You've earned yourself a black mark. No companion is going to contract with you ever again." And Sir Warwick says, "You'll have to rely on your winning personality to get women. God help you."
Help you indeed.
That's okay. His butler loves him very, very much.
And, of course, that's where we get the line. Mal looks at Inara and says, "Mighty fine shindig."
Mighty
Yes.
fine shindig.
That's it.
Yep.
Which Espenson specifically wrote because she loved the word shindig and thought that was a perfect way to add. It was a perfect word to use for this antiquated language that you're making new again in the sci-fi version here. So I thought that was a really good word. Yeah, she was really into that word, and I'm really into that word.
Obviously, yes. Clearly, we like it.
And then you have the crew reuniting on the ship.
Yes.
Before the plan can be enacted against Badger. And Jane says, "We was just about to spring into action, Captain. Complicated escape and rescue up." And Wash says, "I was going to watch. It was very exciting."
Oh, Wash, you're so darling.
The scene that Alastair brought up briefly of Kaylee happily walking to her room, getting a little bit something to eat, relaxing, leaning back, and then you see that she got to keep the dress.
Yes.
I love
Staring
it.
right
She was
at it.
staring
Yeah.
at it.
That
She's so
classical
happy.
music from the ball,
I love
too.
it. I love she got to keep the dress.
That Kaylee
Well, they cheated
is-
Badger out of good money for that dress.
They did.
Right. That Kaylee hasn't been diminished by any of this, that she's been enriched by
No.
this. She's all the things
Yeah.
that she was before, and now she's this too. I just love it.
I completely agree.
But now you get that beautiful scene with Mal and Inara.
And
It is
Kaylee's
beautiful.
engine
Her
wine.
inter-engine fermentation system.
Yes,
So
yes.
good.
This
Which
is
is
prison
great.
wine, isn't it? This is prison wine that you're drinking.
You made this in a toilet. It's
Well,
very
and there
fresh.
is a little bit of teasing when she says it's very fresh, but she's also not being a snob about it at all.
Right.
She is enjoying it. And I really love that about Inara, that in all of her situations, even when she seems like she is very out of place and we get the sense that she's like above such things, you never get the sense that she thinks herself above them. You know? And I really like that. I like that about her.
I like that Inara thanks Mal for what happened, even if he did it the wrong ways and
Yes.
maybe for the wrong reasons.
Me too.
And then Mal
I like her
apologizes to her, and Inara admits she wouldn't leave Serenity. It's so beautiful. It's them getting that close to saying what needs to be said.
close.
Probably as close as they ever
You're
get.
almost there. And then we back up and we see that the cargo was cows.
Yep.
Which
When
is,
Mal says, "Can't think of a reason to leave this ship," and then it zooms out to show the cows.
it's perfect. It's one of the ways in which Firefly is most completely a Western. You know, it has all of this sci-fi trapping. It has all of the accoutrement, the world building detail of a science fiction series. But at its heart, it is absolutely a Western, down to the core thematic conflict of the entire series, the encroachment of civilization upon the frontier. Mal could easily have been fighting in the Old West. Mal could easily have been fighting in Texas in the late 19th century. That tension is inevitable. Anytime there is a frontier, civilization will expand to consume it. And that's, tragic and romantic and heartbreaking in its way. Mal is the last man of a dying breed.
Isn't he just?
Well said.
Yeah.
I do think it's worth noting as well that the cattle there are put in through CGI. They're not actually in that cargo bay because cows won't walk on grating. And that bottom of that cargo bay is grating. They wouldn't have been able to get the cows to stand there or walk on that.
So interesting.
I learned from the commentary, I didn't know that this was actually true, that you can just draw the pattern of grating on the ground and the cow won't step on it.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting.
Once again, we prove our mastery over cows.
Apparently cows are actually this is a completely useless anecdote, but I do think that it's funny. You can put 20 cows into a pen with surrounded by barbed wire. They'll be totally fine. They won't get into the wire. They'll be able to keep themselves safe. But you put a horse in a field and you just chuck a ball of barbed wire somewhere into the field and the horse will stumble over it and get itself hurt because I guess horses are dumber than cows and just constantly trying to get themselves hurt.
Are they dumber or are they just more adventuresome? Horses are the Mal Reynolds of the animal kingdom. Is what we've learned.
Hey, I played Red Dead Redemption. I know how dumb horses can be. They can get you killed. I think I've heard the same about Skyrim as well.
Hey, that second Red Dead game is coming out next year. I cannot wait.
I'm so
for
excited.
Oh my gosh. Will you please get that so that I can watch you play it?
Yes.
Thanks.
Done. Talk about great westerns.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on into our geeking out session, where we talk about our favorite parts of the episode and who we think did the best.
I love my captain.
What was your favorite part of this episode?
She looks right at me because it surprises no one. Yeah, I like the shindig. I like the ballroom. I like the dresses. I like the lights. I like the music. I like all of it. I like the romance. Suits me. I'm easy.
Then
Murphy.
yeah.
I love Murphy.
The old man Murphy.
I love
Old man
Kaylee.
Murphy.
I love Kaylee in that interaction
Yeah.
where she's so happy walking up to these mean girls. They shut her down. Murphy totally steps in and is like, nope. And then you cut to Kaylee in her prime with everyone loving her. And I love that. I love that moment, that redemption there of seeing that she is an interesting person and damn it, people like her.
That's right. That's right.
Good. Uh-huh. That's good.
I am Kaylee.
You are Kaylee.
You just got to find the right people and
Oh, I have. I
that want to
found
listen
them.
to
Don't
you.
worry.
And we're here and we want to listen.
Yep.
We
Thank
encircle
you.
you.
We're super into you, Sarah.
Aw, thanks. You guys aren't too bad yourselves. Alastair, what was your favorite part?
Well, mine have been taken, so I'll move down my list to Harrow, who I think is
There you go.
just fantastic. I love the final beat, the closure that he brings to the plot when he tells Mal after the duel, "You willing to fight that hard to protect my property? I'll have it in your hold before midnight."
Yes.
This recognition from someone who represents, order and society and civilization, this recognition that Mal is a good guy. That's a recognition that Mal gets
Yeah.
all too rarely. And I love how clearly
a man of
that
honor.
concludes the plot. He's a great guy. And of course, a fantastic performance from a character actor that we adore in many, many things.
Yes.
Oklahoma's Got Talent, y'all.
Yeah, we do.
I hear it's like podcast mecca. It's crazy.
That's what people keep saying. I think my favorite part is whenever Kaylee and Mal first enter the party and just how thrilled Kaylee is to be there in
Yes.
her dress. She's got her hair done up, her makeup done. Like, she is just so excited. And she even the line she goes, "All of these women have such beautiful dresses on, and so do I. Well, look at that." And she's just so pleased. I love whenever
Yeah.
Kaylee is happy. It makes me happy.
It is delightful. It's
It
a
really,
delightful
really is.
episode.
What about performances in this episode? What did you guys think? Who did especially good work this time around?
I'm going to have to go with Nathan Fillion, I think. I agree. Alastair, you were talking about that scene in the room when he's learning the sword fighting from Inara. He's very subtle and he's very good. And with Inara and Mal, I mean, it's like 90% subtext anyway. He's very good at the subtext. So, and Morena Baccarin is also, but she has a lot more going for her. She has more of a physical character anyway. Mal is very kind of like stoic, stolid, standing in one spot. You know, she's very fluid, and the way she moves, and even in her clothing, you get more to work with than you do for Mal. And so he had to do it all with his face and with his expression and the lack of it, and when he turned his back and when he faced her, and well done, sir.
Yeah,
I agree.
believe you.
Yeah.
I love Jewel Stady.
She's so good.
She is the most adorable person.
She
Please come be our friend.
She can really show that look of pure joy
Yes.
Yeah.
that I know is true and real because I've seen Sarah make that same look very often.
Yes.
Oh, I've never been happier. I'm so glad this was the solution to today. This right here. Oh man. What about you, Alastair?
I think this is a really strong episode for great performances. For me, Alan Tudyk just does it every single time, every line, every word, every inflection.
Really?
He's so good. And the intimacy that he gets, the intimacy between Wash and Zoe, just makes me really happy. And there is something about that line. You want a slinky dress? I'll buy you a slinky dress, Captain. Can I have some money for a slinky dress?
Yes. Such a good
He
line.
handles that Jane Espenson dialogue like he was born to it. And that's something that
true.
we're very familiar with through Dusted and watching a lot of Jane's work. I don't know, she's done, where we are in the run, she's done maybe 15 or 16 episodes at this point. So we're familiar with the ticks of her dialogue, and he does it pretty much better than anyone.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I agree with everybody. Whatever cop out. I think everyone did great.
Everyone's awesome.
Everyone's great. Everyone's perfect. I love all of them.
Except the guy who played Atherton.
I wasn't going to say it again, but you brought it up. So yeah, he was fine.
I would say it has to be hard playing a character who's supposed to be the bad guy in a show.
Okay, Lynn, also,
you're less
I
likely to
understand,
be liked as an actor as well.
You can't just walk into this ensemble cast and do it, right? Like you have to be exceptional to match up with these exceptional people.
That's true. I was going to say Sheriff Bourne, right?
Oh, Sheriff Bourne. Yeah, he was amazing.
I still need that spinoff. You know what? I'm probably just going to fanfic that spinoff.
Please do. Someone fanfic the spinoff. Paradiso Moon. I just named it.
Do what?
Paradiso Moon.
You did just name it. Good job. Anytime Mark Shepard shows up, he obviously does just an astounding job and is so great.
He is great.
I mean, everyone did excellent work. I'm proud of everybody.
They should all be thoroughly pleased with themselves.
They should. It's a mighty fine show they put together. Okay, do we have anything else? Is that it? I think we did it.
I think we did it. Yeah,
sounds good to me. Yeah,
I think
awesome.
I think I got even all of my notes. Maybe.
Oh, good.
Yay.
Oh, I did the thing.
You did it. Good. This is my first time witnessing that in person. It's a big moment for me.
Oh, did you say good?
Yes, I
missed
did.
It? Oh, that's funny.
You can tell that we do it so often now that it did nothing for Liz just then.
I was looking at my notes, but yes, no, it happens all the time.
It really, really does, though. I also say yes constantly all the time now.
I say cool, but that's because of community.
Sure.
Whenever I say good, I followed up with damn it, actually. But just because it is such a joke now.
That's funny.
I'm glad that pleased you so much.
Well, this was a blast. Thank you, Alastair, so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
It's always so much fun having you on the show, on whatever show it is that we're doing.
Absolutely.
Super duper enjoyable. Please go listen to every single Storywonk podcast that they ever made. Twice.
Can you tell our lovely folks where to find you, Alastair?
You can find me at storywonk.com. All of my various things are there. You can also find me on Twitter at paperbullets, where I tweet about things and try to brighten an otherwise nightmarish world.
Yep.
Amen.
You do it
little too heavy there?
My
little too real there at the end?
No, it's perfect. No, it's okay. Listen, we chase after fiction to get away from this horrible, bleak nightmare hellscape of the world that we're in right now, but I think we're doing okay. We're probably doing a pretty good job. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Elsa Grab the Salt.
I'm at Flesh Eater.
I'm at Lizbeth Ray 555, and you can get our network at Common Room Cast.
And if you want to hear more from me, you can check out the Graphomania Podcast Network at graphocast.com, where you can find the Hamilton podcast, aforementioned.
Yes, he mentioned it several times. Also, you can actually hear Alastair on one of those shows on the Graphomania Network. This will be good. Actually, this is great. Okay, if you're having a really tough time, like with the election cycle, with everything that just happened, and just with the world in general, please go listen to Botchcast, where we, Vinton, Liz, myself, and a couple of other friends of ours play a Marvel Cinematic Universe role-playing game. Liz is Captain America. I'm the Scarlet Witch. Vinton is Spider-Man, and Alastair is our voiceover guy for every episode, and he kills it every time.
Yes,
it is.
Please check it out. It's a lot of fun.
The highlight of my day when I get those scripts in from you guys. It's the best.
I have another one of those I got to edit soon. Oops. Oh well. I'm very late. I got married. Stuff got busy. I don't know.
That is actually a joint production between Common Room and Graphomania. It can be found on graphocast.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and I think there's all on YouTube as well, mostly on YouTube at least.
Excellent. Super cool. Great. Excellent. If you guys enjoyed the show, if you want to support us, what we're doing over here, you can head on over to patreon.com/Common Room Radio. You can also go to, Graphomania is on Patreon, Storywonk's on Patreon. Just give us all your money so that we can keep giving you podcasts, please.
It costs
We
money
will
to
bring
do
you
this,
joy.
but we'll give you goodies for giving us money.
That's right. All kinds of good things, mostly our love, which is priceless.
It is priceless.
Also, in a couple of weeks, we will have the second half of Storywonk, the indomitable Lonnie Diane Rich on. She's going to be joining us for Our Mrs. Reynolds, which we'll be doing in 2
exciting.
weeks.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked about that episode, not only because I have a giant crush on Lonnie, also Christina Hendricks.
Really, both immaculate women. Yes.
Okay, I think that's it. Is that everything?
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome. All right.
So thanks again for listening. From Common Room Radio, I'm Liz Stevens.
From Storywonk, I'm Alastair Stevens. No relation.
PH.
From Graphomania, I'm Vinton Bain.
From Common Room Radio, I'm Sarah Kate Bazat.
We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir, Captain Tight Pants. That was good.
That was good.
That was
You
great.
guys are the greatest.